Turning empty, unused parking lots into affordable housing, how a rule change for the Metro transit system could lead to thousands of new homes. A new trade deal is coming, but is it a good one? Mexico's ambassador to the U.S. talks with KPBS News about the plan to replace NAFTA.
A lot of the things that we are asking for in District 8, other communities take for granted.
The race for city council in District 8. Antonio Martinez tells us about his campaign in the South Bay. And after years of being understaffed, the San Diego Police Department has a plan to fill hundreds of jobs. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Stocks fell sharply again today in what's been a turbulent week on Wall Street. The Dow Jones lost another 546 points. Combined with yesterday's sell-off, the index has lost nearly 1,400 points in just 2 days. Investors remain worried that trade tensions between the U.S. and China, as well as rising interest rates, might slow economic growth. San Diego and Tijuana business leaders are lobbying Congress to approve the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero sat down with Mexico's ambassador to the United States to talk about the plan to replace NAFTA.
President Trump has said that NAFTA was the worst trade deal ever made and that he's fixed it with this new treaty. As a proponent of the original treaty, can you speak to whether this is a very different treaty in fact?
Well, I think first of all I would emphasize that this is a very good result certainly for Mexico, but it's a very good result for the NAFTA partners, for Canada, for the United States, and for Mexico. I think at the outset I would emphasize 3 points. One, it gives certainty to our trade and investment relations among the partners, something that it's, I would say, needed. Secondly, it prompts North America to continue to be the most competitive region in the world, and that's important, because the agreement is not only about how much we trade among the partners and how much we invest among ourselves, but it's also about how can we better produce together to export to other regions of the world, and I think that the treaty does that.
So it's essentially about growing the relationships that NAFTA established. It's not necessarily different.
After 25 years, it's only natural that there were things that needed to be updated, changed, modernized, and improved. And that the agreement needed to be modernized. So, for example, we incorporated better provisions with respect to e-commerce, something that was not as important and prevalent 25 years ago. And that's something that benefits the three nations. So that's certainly an improvement. That's something that changed. We also, for example, on the auto industry, there was an intent to make sure that we were, as a region, better positioned to attract investment, and that the North American region would, produce more and better cars to export to other regions of the world.
What about in terms of agriculture? I know the original NAFTA contributed in part to some of the waves of illegal immigration that we saw in the 90s because of the conditions that it created for Mexico's small farmers, the campesinos. Is this treaty different in regards to these small farmers?
Well, I would beg to differ from that point of view. I'm not sure that there is a very clear and evident causation between that part of immigration from the ag sector in Mexico and the North American Free Trade Agreement. I don't think that necessarily is the case.
But what about the plummeting prices that we saw for commodities?
But plummeting prices are not the result of the trade agreement. They are the result of the market conditions worldwide.
But there will be a tendency towards industrialization, and it is a reality that Mexico's small farmers were unable to compete, at least in maize, with corn, with the U.S.'s heavily subsidized agriculture industry. Is this something that is addressed?
But see, there's a whole debate about that. And again, I think that I would just offer a different view. I'm not saying that everything is good and dandy on the Mexican agricultural sector. We certainly face a lot of challenges, but it depends on who you ask. Some small producers in Mexico have managed to become very successful in certain products, like tomato, where we have a competitive advantage, like tomato, like avocados, and other types of vegetables. I think that the challenges that the Mexico face on the agriculture sector are there and need to be addressed, but I'm not so sure that it is through, certainly not by restricting trade that will solve the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you.
In order to build a new border wall, the Trump administration will waive dozens of environmental laws. The LA Times reports environmental groups will sue to try to block the plan. The waivers involve a section of Texas's Rio Grande Valley where construction is set to begin in February. Republicans are pushing for full funding of the new border wall at an estimated cost of $23 billion. U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein and State Senator Kevin De Leon have agreed to debate next week. Feinstein is seeking a sixth term in the Senate. California State Senator Kevin De Leon is a fellow Democrat who has trailed in recent polls. The debate will be held Wednesday in San Francisco. This week, KPBS is focusing on the races for San Diego City Council. Tonight, we hear from Antonio Martinez, who is running for the open seat in District 8. He talked to KPBS reporter Andrew Bowen.
Antonio Martinez, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
So homelessness is a big issue in District 8. Some residents of Logan Heights have fought against a storage facility for homeless folks to keep their belongings. Do you think that project has been a success, or have people's fears been realized? And what more do you think the city needs to be doing to combat homelessness?
Well, when you look at what we've done, the city has failed when it comes to homelessness. 20 people have died because of the Hep A outbreaks. So in my opinion, that's a failure in and of itself. But when it comes to this homeless storage facility, the concern we've always had as residents is that we never get an opinion as to where these projects are going to happen or where they're located. And the issue is that that the residents there face is that it's essentially 1 block away from an elementary school. If that was any other community, that wouldn't have happened. So when it comes to the storage facility, I think that's also been, in terms of what they're trying to do with it, a failure from the city, just because, in my opinion, it should never have been located that close to a school. If that was anybody else, it would never have happened. Good idea, bad location.
At the root cause, or one of the root causes of homelessness, is the high cost of housing in San Diego. And a lot of experts agree that housing is very expensive here, in part because we just don't have enough of it and we're not building enough for the needs of our population growth. Where do you think housing should be built in San Diego, and should more of it be going in District 8?
Well, you know what? I think that when it comes to housing, we have to address that it has to be both affordable and essentially for individuals that are middle class, because when it comes down to it, those are the individuals that normally can't afford it. And when it comes to it, I would like to see development in every district of the city, and essentially deal with it strategically so that we, again, deal with the homeless crisis, but also with just affordability of housing in general.
Barrio Logan has been stuck with a community growth plan that's very outdated ever since city voters rejected an update to it in 2014. What work do you think has to be done to get a new community plan for Barrio Logan that will actually stick?
Absolutely. Well, obviously, when you hear about what that's about, 40 years old, that's how old this plan update is. For me, that's a disgrace. It's the oldest plan update from the city of San Diego. And what needs to happen is we need to meet with the stakeholders and really hear from what the residents have to say to get something done and build a consensus as to moving that plan update forward. The community needs it and deserves it.
You said that one of your top priorities is fighting for the community's fair share of road repair, clean streets, and more parks. Ultimately, the mayor is the one to put together a budget. You, if you're elected, would be 1 vote out of 9 on the city council to approve or reject that budget. How do you make sure that District 8 actually gets its fair share, knowing that, you'll be 1 city council member?
Well, I want to be a consensus builder. I think when it comes down to, I want to come in with a clean slate, work with all council members, but also address the issue that a lot of the things that we are asking for in District 8, other communities take for granted. We ask for sidewalks to walk safely to school. We ask for lighting so our homes don't get vandalized. We want more parks so we can be physically active and healthy. In fact, there's some parks where actually kids don't have space. Particularly in San Ysidro, I can think of one where the kids actually play soccer in a basketball court. It's pretty creative. They use the basketball poles as essentially the goal. So if they hit the ball towards the goal, hits the pole, that's a goal. Wouldn't it be nice, though, if they actually had real soccer fields to play in, and basically enjoy the community around them? And really, that's what we're asking for. And I hope that going into City Hall, we want to be that consensus builder to bring those resources directly to the community. And again, we deserve it.
The current council member for District 8, David Alvarez, is often the lone dissenting voice on the city council. What would your style of leadership be in your interactions with the mayor and with your other council colleagues?
The one that's consensus building. I don't want to be a lone vote that loses. I want to be a vote that actually gets things done, particularly not just for the city of San Diego, but also for the residents in District 8. Going back to that storage facility, that lone vote shouldn't have happened, in my opinion. When it comes down to it, we need to think strategically as to how we get things done so that when I'm voting, it's actually for positive reasons, and more importantly, it's for the benefit of the community.
What do you think the most important distinction is between you and your opponent in this race?
You know, I'm a lifelong resident of the district. I grew up in San Ysidro. In fact, I remember a time in my neighborhood where I actually, we lived in a neighborhood where we'd hear gunshots at night. Gangs were prevalent, and it's the first in my family to go to college. I went to the University of Pennsylvania, graduated, and I made a promise that I would come back and serve and help people in need. And I've been doing just that, working for a community health center for 10 years now, also in District 8. So I'm proud to not only be born and raised in District 8, but also live there. And I think that experience is invaluable. And we've been precinct walking, knocking door to door, and I think that's been very beneficial because as we walk, we've been asking folks, you know, what can we do to make our community better and safer, and collecting that data too. That way we have that ready to go when we win in November.
And Tony Martinez, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you.
Tomorrow we will have our interview with the other candidate in this race, Vivian Moreno. iNews Source is following the money for local ballot measures. One of those measures is YY, a multi-billion-dollar bond proposal for San Diego schools. Here's more from the special series from reporters Jill Castellano and Brad Racino.
A lot of it is going to be used for what you would expect, like upgrading classrooms and science labs, renovating the foundations of old buildings, improving plumbing, things like that.
Okay, but weren't the school district's last two bonds supposed to pay for all that?
Kind of. Voters approved a school bond in 2008 for $2.1 billion, and they approved another in 2012 for $2.8 billion. But the school district says about half of that money has already been spent, and the other half is allocated for specific projects.
So this bond is adding on to previous bonds?
Right, another $3.5 billion. It's paying for upgrades to some buildings and funding projects that weren't covered in the previous bonds, like improving school security. I talked to Scott Barnett about this. He's the spokesperson for the group supporting the bond measure. He showed me around the Grant K-8 school in Mission Valley to explain what the different bonds pay for.
The buildings over here were built under Proposition S in 2008 and Proposition Z in 2012. And the very old administration building and these old bungalows are all going to be replaced. New buildings, new classrooms, new administration, library under Proposition YY.
Who's against this bond?
The San Diego County Taxpayers Association opposes it. They actually supported that first bond back in 2008, but now they say the school district should not be trying to take out another bond when we're still paying off those two previous bonds. Here's the association's president, Haney Hong.
I'll give you an analogy. They've already got 2 mortgages that they've taken out to build facilities and maintain them, and this is a 3rd mortgage to pay for maintenance of buildings.
So how does this bond get repaid?
By homeowners. If you live in the San Diego Unified District, your taxes will go up about $60 for every $100,000 of your home's value. So if your home is worth $500,000, that's an extra $300 in taxes.
There's a political committee trying to get this measure passed. How much money do they have and who's funding it?
The committee is described as, and I'm quoting, a coalition of labor unions, school contractors, charter school advocates, and other civic leaders. It's raised more than $378,000. But the part to really pay attention to is where it says charter school advocates, because about 40% of the funding for this campaign has come from a single donor, the California Charter Schools Association.
Why?
Probably because San Diego Unified has 46 charter schools, and this ballot measure includes $580 million to help upgrade them.
And lastly, Jill, tell viewers how they can find out more about this.
You can go to data.inewssource.org. We built an easy-to-use database that lets you search through more than $100 million in political campaign fundraising and spending in San Diego County, which has never been built before.
Tomorrow's segment will cover Measure J, which addresses transparency in city contracts. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, wiped out. Hurricane Michael leaves a deadly path of destruction along the Gulf of Mexico coast. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
State education officials are pushing a goal to graduate more bilingual students. The goal is substantial. Right now, there are 400 dual language immersion programs in the state. The superintendent of public instruction says he wants 1,600 programs by the year 2030.
Bilingual education improves students' academic outcomes all across the boards and prepares them better for their future in a global economy. So we build understanding. We build trust between cultures and people when we know their language.
In addition to Spanish, Cantonese, Mandarin, and Korean are in high demand. The superintendent says by 2040, he would like to see all public schools have some sort of bilingual program. Governor Jerry Brown recently signed a bill that will create more pilot programs for bilingual learning. Researchers at UC Irvine say climate change could have a negative impact on the Sierra Nevada snowpack. Ezra David Romero of Capitol Public Radio has this story.
If winter temperatures increase on average by 1 degree Celsius, UC Irvine researchers suggest that it will lead to a 20% rise in the likelihood of below average snow accumulation in the high country. That's according to a new study out of UC Irvine. UCI researcher Lori Hunning says this could hurt the farms, dairies, and ranches that rely on water that originates in the Sierra Nevada.
Warmer winter temperatures tend to decrease the amount of water stored as snow in the mountains. And it also forces snowpack up to higher elevation. And so if we have less snow, more likely to have drought conditions, or as we saw this year, extend the wildfire season.
Hunting says not all parts of the Sierra Nevada will be affected equally. She says the northwestern part of the range is predicted to have the highest risk. Ezra David Romero, Cap Radio News.
Drone video shows just how much damage was done by Hurricane Michael. This is the town of Mexico Beach, Florida, not far from where the storm made landfall yesterday. First responders in Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina say 6 people died as a result of the hurricane. Some areas remain under a curfew. Hundreds of thousands of people are without electricity.
It's like our lives are gone. You know, our lives, everything we have is gone now and stuff. We lost all our cars, everything and stuff. And so, I don't know. Anyway, I can't. It's sort of just hard to realize just what just happened and stuff. But surviving it is the best, the most important thing, I think, is just being able to survive this.
What's now Tropical Storm Michael is moving through the Carolinas, which was hit by a hurricane just a few weeks ago. And there's a chance of rain here in San Diego over the next couple of days. Aaron Calandra has details in tonight's forecast.
Well, I hope your Thursday was okay. We are getting a lot closer to the weekend, and the weather for right now, not bad, but we could see a couple of showers. Let's take a peek at what's going on. Well, to the east of us, a couple of showers around in Arizona, moving into Colorado with a couple of snow flurries there. But for us, we are quiet. Not much going on right now here across San Diego County. And for tonight, it's going to remain pretty quiet. Borrego Springs at 59 degrees, Oceanside 54, Chula Vista 59. Along the coast, of course, you'll notice a couple of those clouds, but they'll be broken up by morning. So for tonight in the metro, 63 with a partly cloudy night. Now we have a couple things going on. Let's start off with Sergio. Sergio is going to be cruising into Mexico, and with that, we're going to see heavy downpours across that region. Worries for some flooding, mudslides, things like that. But what we're going to notice notice here in San Diego County is a rough ocean. We're going to see large swells 4 to even 8 feet. It's going to be pretty dangerous for boaters, for swimmers. Rip currents are going to be a major concern here across San Diego County, so be careful there. But also, we expect to see a low pressure system drive into Southern California from Bakersfield down to the south through San Diego. We're going to see a couple of showers, higher rainfall amounts to the south, and temperatures, well, they're going to drop below normal. This is going to be late on Friday and into Saturday. So as we start off tomorrow, it's going to be pretty nice, mainly sunny for many people. San Diego at 76 degrees, Ramona around 81, Chula Vista in those upper to mid 70s, and in the mountains 60. The desert's not bad. 85 degrees. Here's what it looks like for the weekend. That storm is going to push off to the east, and we are going to be drying out. So here we are along the coast. Friday starts off good. Then we see that rain moving in for Saturday. Not as warm, and then we rebound. By Tuesday, we're back up to the 80s. We're going to see that rain inland as well on Saturday with cooler temperatures, but warming up to 88 by Tuesday. The mountains will see some showers on Saturday. Temperatures will remain in the 50s Tuesday up to the 60s, and in the deserts, we'll see that rain at times on Saturday. It's going to be cooler in the 80s all week. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
The Metropolitan Transit System has updated a policy meant to encourage more smart growth near trolley stops. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says housing and transit advocates are cheering.
MTS owns more than 57 acres of land, much of it surface parking lots like this one right next to the Palm Avenue trolley station. It's prime real estate, but this morning it was mostly empty. Advocates say the updated real estate policy will encourage more competition among developers to bring the land to its highest and best use. Mary Leiden leads the pro-housing group Housing U Matters.
We see those empty parking lots, and it's like there is a great opportunity. And I think what better way than for a government to use its excess land and test some new things out, see if it works, see if they can help catalyze a product that people are interested in.
The policy update was initiated by MTS Board Chair and San Diego City Councilwoman Georgette Gomez. It passed the agency's board unanimously. The new policy sets a goal that 20% of homes developed on MTS land be affordable for low-income households. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The MTS board took another action this morning, voting to formally oppose Proposition 6, which would repeal the gas tax increase. MTS staffers say Prop 6 would take away $16 to $20 million in annual revenue that supports local bus and trolley operations. The San Diego Police Department wants to fill more than 200 open positions by 2020. One of the steps they're taking is to achieve that goal is a new recruitment campaign. The city has hired a downtown-based marketing firm at a cost of $350,000. Mayor Kevin Faulkner says retention has improved since the city council approved pay raises last year. Jazz music, flamenco dancing, and a night at the theater are just some entertainment options this weekend in San Diego. KPBS Arts Calendar editor Nina Guerin has more.
Trumpet player Keon Harold has performed with artists like Beyonce, Jay-Z, and Rihanna. But this weekend, he performs at UC San Diego with his own jazz band. Harold fuses jazz, rock, classical music, and hip-hop to create a uniquely modern and American sound. He's also a songwriter and creates music that comments on politics and problems in society. The trumpeter is from Ferguson, Missouri, and he grew up in a family of 16 children where they performed in a drum and bugle corps with their grandfather. Catch Harold's show as part of the Loft's intimate jazz series. Explore the history of flamenco dancing with Tierra, Mar y Aire, a new show by local dance group Flamenco Arana. This show travels throughout time, starting with the Romani tribes trekking through Asia and finishing with the styles and cultures found along the Mediterranean Sea. Directed by Cristina Covarrubia, The show features both student and advanced level dancers accompanied by live music, including vocals by Juan de Dios. Finally, catch the San Diego premiere of Guadalupe in the Guest Room, a play that focuses on Latin telenovelas. The show is about Guadalupe, a woman who has lost her daughter. All of a sudden, she's forced to bond with her grieving son-in-law, and the only way they can communicate is through these Latin soap operas. Guadalupe in the Guest Room is part of New Village Arts' bilingual and bicultural outreach initiative, Teatro Pueblo Nuevo. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
Now, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. First Man. KPBS Arts reporter Beth Accomando reviews the new biopic about astronaut Neil Armstrong. And on Midday Edition, voter registration mistakes. We'll look at how statewide DMV issues are affecting local offices. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.